Let's talk about today's Supreme Court opinions, which say no man is above the law, but in reality deliver little more than half a loaf of justice. And now more than ever, folks, justice matters. Hey all. Glenn Kirshner here. You know, if you watch my YouTube videos or catch my MSNBC appearances or read my tweets, you can probably tell that I'm a pretty optimistic guy. The glass is generally half full, and I'm always looking for a little bit of silver lining behind the big, dark cloud that is Donald Trump and his administration. So I'm trying to find things to be optimistic about in today's Supreme Court opinions. And you've probably already heard some sound bites. On cable news, people have endlessly been saying what a resounding victory it is because the Supreme Court has announced that no man is above the law. And so let me start there and let me read one of the main takeaways from the opinions authored by Chief Justice Roberts when he says, quote, "No citizen, not even the president, is categorically above the common duty to provide evidence when called upon in a criminal proceeding." So, no man is above the law. You know, and that's just a correct statement of law, right? It's a correct statement of our democracy. It's a correct statement of any civilized society, right? And yes, Donald Trump lost today because he wanted the courts to say, in accordance with his lawyer's arguments, that he is absolutely immune, he is above the law, he cannot be touched while in office. And the Supreme Court rejected that. Donald Trump certainly thinks he lost today because you can tell from his tweets, right? Among other things, here's what Donald Trump has been tweeting. "This is a political prosecution. He complains that now I have to keep fighting in a politically corrupt New York. This is presidential harassment. It's prosecutorial misconduct. And courts in the past have given broad deference, but not to me." So, yeah, Donald Trump certainly thinks he lost. But let's talk about the consequences of today's Supreme Court opinions. Yes, they announced no man is above the law. But what they also say is both of these cases will now go back to the trial courts. The one in New York, where Donald Trump's lawyers will be free to make all kinds of objections to these subpoenas that Cyrus Vance, the district attorney, issued, just as any other citizen could challenge those subpoenas. And Donald Trump's lawyer, Jay Sekulow, and his merry band of attorneys have already indicated that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to go back to the New York court and start fighting all over again. The other case got remanded back to the Washington, D.C. trial court. And the Supreme Court said, we want the trial court to now take up the weighty issues of the proper balance of separation of powers when Congress issues subpoenas for presidential information, financial records like this. So everybody will be back in the trial court in D.C. litigating some more. So what will happen next is lots of briefs will be filed, arguments will be scheduled and conducted. We'll wait for trial court opinions. We'll get trial court opinions. They'll be appealed. And then more briefs, more arguments, more waiting, more opinions, more appeals to the Supreme Court. So in essence, Donald Trump has successfully run out the clock. He has hidden from the American people all of his financial and tax information that we were entitled to see to make a fully informed opinion about who to vote for. We should have had it back in 2016 when he kept promising the American people he would be giving us his tax records as soon as he wasn't under audit. But then instead he's fought tooth and nail to conceal them from the American people, to hide them from the American voter. So we'll go back to the polls in November and we'll cast our votes. We'll vote him out, no doubt, but we still won't know how much in hoc he is to Deutsche Bank or how financially beholden he is to Russia, why it is that every day he sides with Vladimir Putin over the American people. So you'll excuse me if I don't dance in the aisles over the fact that the Supreme Court just said, no man is above the law. You know, you'll excuse me for not dancing in the aisles when just yesterday we saw lawsuits brought by Harvard and MIT against the federal government. Why? Because the federal government just told hundreds of thousands of students who are on here on student visas from all around the world, F1 student visas. The federal government just told them, you know what? Because colleges and universities have converted to online teaching, you no longer need to be here. Get out. Go back to your country. You're not needed here. You're not wanted here. Hundreds of thousands of students. Don't take my word for it. Let's see what Ken Cuccinelli said on TV just the other day. Ken Cuccinelli, who's the acting Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security, he said, if classes are going to be 100% online, then the students here on F1 visas don't have a basis to be here. They should go home, and then they can return when the schools open. So you'll excuse me if I'm not dancing in the aisles today because no man is above the law. You know, and I'm not dancing in the aisles because today saw former U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Jeff Berman, testify behind closed doors, the House Judiciary Committee. But before he went in, he issued a public opening statement that said he was summoned to a hotel room in New York by the Attorney General, who said, resign. And he said, no. And the Attorney General then lied to the American people and said, Jeff Berman has resigned. And Jeff Berman said, that's a lie. He said it in today's opening statement. The Attorney General lied. He tried to force me out. He tried to make me resign. I said no. And then he fired me, even though he told me I was doing an excellent job. So forgive me if I'm not dancing in the aisles that no man is above the law. On a day when we see Michael Cohen taken back into federal custody by Bill Barr's Bureau of Prisons because he wouldn't sign a document saying he won't write a book about the president's misconduct. So they lock him back up. So forgive me if I'm not dancing in the aisles that the Supreme Court said, no man, when Donald Trump will be headed back to court and will be involved in more frivolous arguments and more delays and will continue to hide, conceal information that the American people have a right to know before they go back to the polls in November. Yeah, I'm not dancing in the aisles. What do we do about it, folks? What do we do about it? When people are weaponizing the courts, not because they have good legal arguments, but because they're trying to run out the clock, or they're trying to bury their opponents in legal fees or in legal motions, we have to do something about it. And there is something we can do about it. And I've talked about it in an earlier video. We have to create courts that recognize Donald Trump's game and the game of other nefarious litigants who are not interested in honestly and legitimately using the system to decide disputes, but kind of using the system against itself. We have to create courts with specialized dockets. What do I mean by that? We see that litigants can use delay to run out the clock. So what we do is we set reasonable time limits on litigation. In criminal courts around the country, we have specialized dockets. In Washington, D.C., in Superior Court, we have specialized dockets for, landlord-tenant disputes. We have mental health court. We have drug court. We have domestic violence court. We have accelerated calendars where people are locked up pending trial. It's a very weighty liberty interest they have. So we put it on an accelerated track so we can get that case tried quickly. In federal court, we have FISA courts, we have reentry courts, we have all these specialized courts where we can tailor the deadlines and the litigation timetable to the needs of the case and the needs of the community. We need an interbranch governmental dispute court. So when Congress issues a subpoena and Donald Trump says, we're not complying, you get 72 hours to file suit, another 72 to submit your brief, another 72 to argue it, and then in 72 hours you get the court's opinion. You want to appeal it? 72, 72, 72. We can do these things in a matter of weeks rather than in a matter of years. We can do it, we just have to have the will. This doesn't take an act of God. It might take a couple of acts of Congress. We can do it. We can defeat Donald Trump and all of his ilk who will come in the future when they know that the Supreme Court says no man is above the law, but any man gets to weaponize the court with endless delays and run out the clock. That shouldn't be the takeaway from where we are. But it is where we are. And we need to fix it. And we can fix it if we have the political will. You know, I'm not going to dance in the aisles, but I am hopeful that justice is coming. Folks, please stay safe. And I look forward to talking with you all tomorrow.